Good evening and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Valerie Parker-Hagan, and I'm so delighted to be here with you this month of March. It is Women's Empowerment Month, and I want to salute all the ladies here in this month of March. And I am so delighted. I have my good friend joining me, Veronica M. Brooks. She has released a new memoir. She's a motivational speaker, author, and coach. Veronica, how are
Hello.
you?
Hello, Dr. Valerie. I am good. Thank you so much for this
I,
opportunity. Good
you're
seeing
the first guest for March, and it's Woman Empowerment Month, and you've just released one of memoir of your story, and I know the backstory. You've shared it with me over the years, and then for those of you that this is the cover of her book, The Warrior Within. Why The Warrior Within? And I see your cover. It has a portion of you, and then you as a child. Can you explain that?
Well, this was because of my, I want people to really notice and actually see, the child and then the adult side of me. And then that would walk them through as they're going through the book. And the warrior, that actually came from my dad and my uncle calling me a warrior gladiator as I was growing up. And so when I was writing this book, and then I had my producer looking too, because this book is also going to be a movie as well. And she's pulling in Morris Chestnut as the director. So I'm grateful for that. And I wanted people to really see. And I when I looked, I said, okay, yes, they're gonna know this is something that catch their eye, like this is a story to be told, and just exactly what I wanted the book to do is actually doing, because I'm getting so many phone calls and it's blowing up so much that I couldn't even get the books myself because they kept selling out.
That is awesome. And I like details. So I'm looking at it and it's black, but the writing is in gold, meaning you came forth as pure gold, even though there was darkness. So there is light in the midst of darkness.
Yes, yes, because in a twinkle of an eye, life changes so quickly, and either you can take on life or you just give in and give up. But I didn't give up even through all the struggles as a young child, trying to fight my way through and figure out, how to get out, and didn't even know how to get out. I
Hmm.
still look back and say, wow, I came through all that and didn't even realize it. But it was all part of, working with a producer too, just telling her the story as well. And she was just floored. And one step at a time, Dr. Valerie, and that's what you taught me actually, to take one step at a time. And you can hold on to so many things for so long, but there's always that one little thing you really need to clear up out of your head. And that was the phone call you had me make to
Hmm.
actually, the one that was doing all the setup in this book.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Dr. Valerie if I should even, I don't know how much to say as
I'm
far
going to
as.
guide you and lead you in because we want people to get the book. I mean, your
Yes.
story is so many women's story and even young men's story, unfortunately. And, I'm so glad that you had the courage to release this book because it is so traumatic, but yet you survived it. We have our stories, our things in our closets. And I remember when I released my book, From the Soul of a Woman, Love Shouldn't Hurt. I never thought that I would get the response that I received because people didn't talk about domestic violence.
Yeah.
back then. And I mean, to date, I've sold over 15,000 hard copies of the book. And that's not talking about downloads and stuff like that, because of the fact that they didn't have the capabilities of downloading it when I first released the book. And to have sold that many hard copies in individuals' hands who more than likely took it and passed it along. And I know that to be true because so many people say they've done that. And I can imagine what your book is going to do and is doing right now for thousands of people right now reading your story.
Yes, that's that war within that I know that everybody has, because I'm grateful because everybody didn't have a mother and a father, but I had both my parents. But everybody has to go through something and everybody survives something. And that I know for sure. If you really look up, you can actually get through and you can even get up and move forward. Just let nothing stop you. Keep moving forward, because that's where the warrior comes in. And when that warrior gladiator, like I said, it was because my dad and my uncle, they always called me a warrior gladiator, because a warrior, they have wounds, but we still fight. But a
Right.
gladiator fights unto death. They don't quit until the end. So, it took me a long time to understand what they were talking about, but now I see. Even though going through struggles, you worry about everybody else but your own self. And I realized,
Absolutely.
like, wow, I actually wasn't even really thinking about myself. I'm worrying about, my sister getting, in trouble, even though the impact came from people that was close to me,
Mm.
that were setting up. But I just I
Well,
I
Veronica, this is a uh, really touchy story
yes.
um, to get into. So tell the audience when life changed for you. How old were you?
I was 14 when uh the drastic part of my life changed. First, 7 years old when my dad got sick, and then 14 when they had to send me to go stay with a relative because he was really really sick, and I was a straight up daddy's girl. I wanted
Hmm.
to just stay up under my daddy all the time, and that was really difficult because separating from him, I never even saw my dad cry like that because, I know he knew I wanted to just stay up under him, but my parents were up in age and they just had to have somebody else at the time that needed my help. The other sibling needed my help with her children, so and I knew nothing
You
about
thought it was
kids.
something
So
working for everyone's
when
good, and it was not. So you
I did,
transitioned
yeah,
to
and I
try
thought
to
they're gonna
be
come back and
a.
get me.
You didn't think they were going to come back and get you?
Well, they were supposed. I was only supposed to be there for just the summer,
Okay. And how long did
but
you
my
actually
dad kept
end up staying?
3 years actually.
Wow. 3 years. So you relocated to another state
Yes.
and you thought you were going to family, a place of safety, 14 years
Mm-hmm.
old.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are. Kind of lead us into, kind of paint the picture for us.
Well, when they, uh, for one thing, when we headed down there, actually, I just won a basketball game that day before we even headed to uh, that state, Oklahoma City, actually. And when we got there, I didn't even want to get out of the car. I don't know. It was just something, you have that eerie kind of feeling.
Mm.
So when we were there, they told me I was just going to stay there to help her with her kids. And I didn't know anything about kids, but I was just going to help her out because she had recently been, divorced and things like that. And she needed help with the kids. But as my dad was, it was just the way when he started, I never seen him cry that hard because he didn't want to actually leave me there, but they just thought I was that one. And when I got there, everything was totally different because I was used to a certain environment. And then I go to this environment where there's a lot of people that look like me, actually, a lot of Black people that I wasn't used to seeing like that. I mean, it was a whole lot. And then
You were
so,
used to a very diverse community.
yes, before I was used to, it was things that we did. We talked about, school and going to college and, things of that nature. But when I got to there, the environment was totally different. But it was like, it was another, like a picture was painted, like it was really supposed to be a good setting there. But when they left, I was just really quiet. They showed me to the room. Well, my sister showed me to where I would be sleeping at. I was just talking to my niece and nephew. I think they were the biggest joy ever because, just being able to talk to them. But it just wasn't like at home, us playing the games, the board games, and all the Christmas things that we do. It just wasn't the same. So I was there not knowing nobody. Everything was just so different. But when they didn't come back, they couldn't come back and get me because my dad ended back up in the hospital. And so I had to stay there a little long. So every time when I thought they were coming to get me, it was like a disappointment because they weren't able to come and get me. So I ended up going to school there. And that was that was like, oh, God. Oh my, yes, because they were all Black people. And I had never seen that many Black people. And then I remember talking to my brother, and I said, "Man, they have these bands, and they're dancing and they're marching, like in the field, dancing with the music and the instruments." That was all a shock. But it was really different when I saw people in the hallway. They were really yelling and I don't know, they're playing like, cards and things of that nature, things I just wasn't used
to. So it wasn't that
so
you
the
thought you
environment
were better than or anything like that. It's just that you were raised a certain way, that your parents, they were older, and you were in this certain community because they had been able to build the legacy that they had at that time, that they had created for you. And then you had to relocate to help a family member who was, struggling at the time. And the atmosphere that you walked into was so much different from what you were accustomed to, that it was like a kind of, like I said, a cultural shock for you. But you adapted.
Yeah, I just
As
stayed
best you
quiet
could,
because
because
I
when
didn't
you
want to hurt
realize,
anybody's feelings. I never did
right,
want to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't want to hurt, I was there with my sister. I didn't want to hurt her feelings, telling her I didn't want to be there.
right.
So I kept quiet, very respectful, everything. But it was hard the way she had done things, the way she had spoke, the way she was so stern, you know, cleaning up this, and just a lot of, it was just a lot of different things that I was
Mhm.
not used to. And then actually just leaving me there with the kids, not knowing how to take care of kids, that was a problem.
Okay,
But
so
they showed me, the kids, they were, I guess they were used to that.
mhm. So in your memoirs, you talked about different things, and what was one of the pivotal points in your life that transitioned you to kind of spiral into this book that you created to bring some type of deliverance to individuals?
Okay, so what had well, that first year it was kind of okay because I had met Glenn and we were friends. So it was kind of,
Glenn is your
just,
husband.
yes, we were just friends. He didn't never try to touch me, kiss me, or nothing. We were actually just friends. But then all of a sudden he just disappeared for no reason. I don't know what happened. Well, I know what happened after the fact. We found out what happened because somebody deterred him and made him stay away. But in that process, all these group of people, they set me up for a man to rape me. That's what they actually did. And the thing I had to really think about, because it was some grown people
In the church.
in the church, grown ups, that, and it is about 8 of them that actually took that time to get me in a place where he can attack me, pick me up, and slam me down and rape me. And the thing is, this man was the head of this church, and it just threw me because I didn't know that people do like that, because being with my uncle Bishop W.C. Griffin, all you see is him preaching, teaching, and you see miracles, you see people getting healed and things of that nature. So you automatically think that pastors, preachers, they're good people.
They're good people, right?
They
That
don't
you can
do
trust them.
anything like that. But when it takes all those women to set me up and then trap me and then get me there, because I wasn't even doing, I was actually playing with my niece and nephew, and then all of a sudden they say, oh, you're going to go spend some time over here with these people and their children. And I was like, God, I didn't even want to go over there. And then telling me what to put on, what to wear. And
Wow.
then the thing of it is, we all were in the same choir, the choir rehearsal, and then all of us, they leave me there and say, oh, come on. They put some food on the stove and telling me to watch it, and then leave me there, not knowing that he was in the back there. They all left me in that house like that.
Mm.
That's what they did.
Talking about a
And I
setup.
think, and to me, I just feel all of them are rapists. I look at all of them are rapists to me.
Yeah, because
That's how I would
basically
look
what
at
they
them, and
did
that's how
was
I
they
will
they
always look at them.
served you up, basically. So that's what happened. They
Yeah, I
literally
was a
like
good,
served
I
you
was a
up.
good kid. It was just a whole entire plot, and they all that stuff been happening before I got there. No telling how many people he already had attacked, and then find out later all the other different kids that he had, and it was just horrible. For me, because I had to sit up there, and the thing is, they knew they knew what happened, because they set up everything for it to happen. And this is why I'm glad that I was able to even write this book. I know I had spoken, I had went to different speaking engagements, and people, they cried when after I got through speaking, telling them about my life of what happened. But the thing is, they had asked, where were you at when I was, and these were like 70 and 80-year-old people.
Wow.
So it's been going on for so long. So yeah, I have my different perspectives about ministry and church. I've been in ministry and things like that, but I am very cautious because of what occurred to me. It affected me. It affected my whole entire life, and it changed my way of thinking. It was almost, I had a near hate against God because I didn't understand why it even happened to me. I was doing nothing but trying to help somebody. And then they're going to set me up for somebody to nearly destroy me. And it didn't happen. They didn't destroy me. I'm here now.
Being that you went through this situation here, tell the audience how you were able at such a young age to kind of pull it together, hold it together to be who you are now.
You know what? I always heard my dad in my ear. My dad was always inside my ear. It's like, that's where that warrior comes in. And I always would think about things my dad said to me. One thing about my parents, they already had taught me about uh, working, being independent, always, never really giving up. But I believe that's why my dad, the chess game, he kept always, it was always that chess he wanted me to play. But now I understand why he was so adamant about me learning how to play chess. Because sometimes it would take me like months to move because it was hard for me to try to beat my dad in playing chess. But you know what? You have to be able to stand your ground in spite of all the other movement of things coming after you, whether it may be the knights, the bishops, whatever. All of them, you have to be able to find a spot to even live. It was just in me to just go ahead on and just survive. But I had to get away from her because it was just a danger zone. It was a total danger zone for me
So
because um,
how did you reach out to your parents, and let them know what had happened to you and how
I did.
difficult was that? You
They
never
never
did.
knew. They never knew what happened. I didn't. I couldn't tell them. I could. The way I was raised up in, if I would have told them, they would have just took care of me. But in the state of mind that I was in, I didn't go to them. I just thought I had to handle everything myself. I thought I had to do all the pressures. In the biggest part was just when I was out there, trying sleeping on the benches and then trying to sleep in the hospitals, and it that part I'm gonna let you guys read about because it's more to it. It was like, oh my goodness, because even golly, I'll tell the whole story by the if you
No, I'm
know,
not going to
but I'm
let you
trying
tell
to
the
keep from
story
not
because
telling it.
I want them to go to veronicabrooks.com so they can get the meat of the story. I just wanted to kind of touch the surface about what the memoir was and why it was so important for you to write it at this dispensation of your life. Now, you brought up your husband, Glenn, in the midst, is that you 14 years old, you had met Glenn and they had ran him out of the church that because you're all going to church together because of the fact that you were set up
Yes,
to be assaulted, basically sexually
yeah,
assaulted.
because she told his mother that she didn't want him coming to see me or coming to pick me up. She thought we were sleeping together, which was not true at all. None of that. He took me to a restaurant. He took me to the movies. We just laughed and talked. Took me to the chocolate park because it was all brown, and he, most of the time, he just listened to me talk about my daddy, because I'm always talking about my daddy. And, my mom, she was good too. I just happened to just stick up underneath my dad so close. And I don't know if it just because he got sick or what, but I was just straight up under him all the time. And what happened, Glenn is he's an obedient child. So his mother told him not to go there, not to call, not to come, pick me up or take me anywhere, not to call or anything. And he did what his mother told him. All I knew is he disappeared. I didn't even know where. And I said, oh, well, and I don't, if you don't know about, chasing after something, I didn't know anything about anything like that. So right. They made sure he was out of the way. So that first year there, they plotted and they planned. They made sure he was out of the way. And then they made sure they took me so I could be attacked and raped by that man.
Yeah, because this beast wanted a virgin. So he actually took your virginity away.
Yes. Yes. And it was really, that was the hardest part, because I didn't even know. I felt like, just wet down there. I didn't realize it was just a lot of, blood and stuff. And I didn't, so I just, oh man, I just got the towel, since I was over there at their, and I just took it and,
this book, The Warrior Within, so many women go through situations like yours, not similar, where being set up by women for the abuse and sexual abuse to happen, but women have gone through, and unfortunately, as I said, men have been sexually abused and set in situations. So in your book, The Warrior Within, can you give a bit of encouragement to help individuals that have went through this and still haven't found their way through the tunnel?
Yes, because one thing I wish I had the courage to do was to speak up. But when he threatened me, telling me that my sister was going to get in trouble, and she talking about my sister was going to go to jail and all this stuff like that, I was still trying to protect her, not realizing, So
she was part of
it. I kept quiet. And the thing is, the one thing I wish I could have did was speak up then, but it was so hard for me to speak up. I just didn't know what to say. I didn't have anything, my parents, I didn't know if my dad would have another heart attack, a stroke. I didn't know if my mom would just fall to pieces. Everything was going through my head with my parents. So I just kept quiet, and I just tried to get through it myself. And I wish I would have spoke up. But when I looked up the statistical data, because every 1 out of 6 people, if there's 6 people, one of those people have been raped completely. And they do it to boys too. There's women that rape boys.
Yes.
And my thing is, you never forget about, you are somebody. And if you could just go and just speak to, find somebody to just talk to and say, this person did this. And I don't know if they may come against you or not, but you keep going down the line until that you find a person that is sticking with you and believing you. Because I know there's people out there that will say, oh, no, you didn't do this, didn't happen or anything like that. But see, the thing is, you are somebody, and you do have the greatness in you to win. You were put on this earth to be somebody. You were put on this earth to be happy. And you are supposed to be having fun. You're supposed to have just your natural self, having a good time. You're supposed to be that way. Don't let nobody try to rip you down, tear you down for you to turn into. You don't have to turn into prostitution. You don't have to turn into drugs. You can go to school forever if you want to. I don't care if you're 90 years old. If you're still breathing, you go to school and you go get whatever degree you want. You go and do whatever you want to do in your life. If you think you can be something great and good, you can.
Yes.
Just do it. Don't give up on you. No matter what it looks like, don't give up on you, because you do, like I said, you are that warrior within you. It's there. Just don't quit. Don't give up. And I have to say this one thing, because Dr. Valerie, she just was so open. And then that's why in my book, in this book, if I don't know if you could see, can you see
Yes.
on the back here, I have, see where it says down there, it's from the Soul of a Woman Foundation that I donate to. This
Thank you.
organization helps women just like what happened to me. People that, even whatever you're dealing with, if you're dealing with drugs or abuse or domestic violence, or maybe somebody had cancer or something, this foundation helps you to get through. Dr. Valerie will talk you through. So make sure, when you purchase this book, just look on the back there. You'll see the from the Soul of a Woman Foundation. And if you need some help, go there and get some help. Excellent place to build you up and encourage you to succeed. I know I
Thank
had
you
to
so
say
much.
that one thing, because that's what really helped me when and then Les Brown was telling me, God, I think it threw him in the seat of his chair when I told him the story. He
Yeah.
he said, "How did you do it?" He was just blown away. But it's what's inside you. And like, I was close to my daddy, and everybody doesn't have that. But hear the person that was in your ear that told you positive things. And my
Mm-hmm.
dad always told me that I could do anything I wanted to do and be anything I wanted to be. That's why I wanted to be a lawyer and a doctor at the same time. My brother, I talk about him in the book with all the easy bake ovens and stuff, what he was cooking. He cooking all that stuff in the easy bake ovens and all that stuff. But the thing is, I know you have the greatness in you. And I'm glad I wrote the book. And yes, it did make some people angry. But it shut a lot of things down. And I don't think that you should make a child that's been raped and molested. You know, I don't care what it is. You don't let that person in that pulpit ever again, because they don't need to be up in there. I had to sit,
Absolutely.
I had to sit in there. They made me sit in there while he's up there. I had to sit in there that whole time
Yeah,
while
it's
he's
so
up
many
there. And
tragedies.
then
Like,
later on, even my husband's father's funeral, years later, and they still got that man up there. I said, "Oh my God!" And when I saw, it was like a hit. It was like I was afraid almost.
wow.
And I said, "Oh my God!" And I think that's when I called you, Dr. Valerie.
Yeah. Veronica, can you speak to grown individuals? Can you speak to that child in them? Because you were that child once, and you
Yes,
know how you felt, and you knew what you were going through emotionally. And I want individuals to know, regardless of what happened to you, it was not your fault. You did
exactly.
not cause it. You didn't look at nobody no certain way. You didn't come on to nobody because you don't
No,
know how to come on to nobody at that
no.
young age. So, can you speak to that youth? Because there's so many individuals that are actually going through mental illnesses because of traumas that were unresolved in their emotions. Can you speak to that, please?
Yes. And that's the thing. We hide those things. We keep those things a secret that we should not even do because it wasn't our fault. It was their fault because it was like their prey upon us. They were watching us to try to destroy us because they all were jealous. They all had the jealousy because they saw the greatness within. This is why even when you are an adult now, and I know it troubles you because even when I became an adult, my husband said I would get up and I'd be screaming. I didn't even know I was screaming. Even when I was writing this book, again, the screams came back. But the thing is, you tell everybody if that person is even up in the pulpit talking, tell on him because he shouldn't even be up there because he have never acknowledged what he did because he was a molester, he was a rapist, and he hurt you as a child. So my thing is you stand up and be who you are because you are somebody and it wasn't your fault that they had preyed up on you. They're the ones that wanted to come after you. It wasn't you going after them, and you did nothing to deserve it. You did not one thing to deserve that type of abuse. But I'm here to tell you, you get up and you let people know, yes, I was, you tell them I was 6 years old, I was 10 years old, and that man raped me because he needs to be exposed.
Absolutely. Veronica, this has just been, an eye opener, I'm sure, for a lot of individuals, because as I said, there are people that have went through traumas and they've suppressed it. And your book, The Warrior Within, is going to awaken a lot of those emotions in individuals. And I recommend that you get the book www.veronicabrooks.com and you order The Warrior Within and see some of the steps that she took to liberate herself so that she can be able to speak boldly and release this memoirs. There's books in you. There's a story inside of you, and you too can be vocal and say what that is and bring healing to the masses. Veronica took courage to release this book, The Warrior Within, not for her own liberation,
Because it was her
because she saw what she went through and she wanted to liberate others so that you can see a glimpse of what is possible. I have our co-host on, Dr. J.R. Thicklin. He's going to be joining us, Veronica. I'm sure he has some questions for you, and as well some of the individuals in the audience, so you can chime in with us. And if you have any questions for Veronica or want to know how you can get her to come and talk for your organization, you can reach out to her, veronicabrooks.com. Good evening, Dr. J.
Well, good evening, and good evening to you, Dr. Veronica. What an amazing story. I think the title of your book says it all, The Warrior Within. And I appreciate your transparency. I do have to get a copy of it because, in fact, there are many people don't ever discover that warrior within themselves.
yes,
They are derailed by incidents such as yours. They're derailed. Their lives never seem to get back on track because oftentimes they don't have people to walk with them, people to guide them. They don't. There are more questions than there are answers, and yet it's still over a period of time. You know, through the process, God has healed you. God has worked inside of you. He's caused you now to find answers. When
yes,
when something so traumatic oftentimes produces nothing but questions. It does. For many
yes,
years and years of self-doubt, self-inflicted wounds, self-blame, and all those things there. but you
Yes.
found this warrior within. And
Yeah.
I think that is so powerful. And I guess if I had a question for you, I would say ask you the question, what would you say to someone who might be watching this, just happen to be strolling watching this, and they identify they've had similar situations to happen, but they've never confronted it, they've never faced it, they never got through. What would you say to them that possibly could help them tap that warrior within?
Yeah, because I always could hear my daddy, because I was a daddy. My daddy, I'm always talking about my daddy this, my daddy that. But my daddy, he was just so great. My mom too, but I was just a daddy's girl. But my thing is, you can tap into that. You can be strong. All you have to look down is within, because no matter what the circumstances are, there's nothing too hard, nothing too bad that you can not come out of. You can come out of it. But with it's good to find somebody to talk to. I was scared to talk to, just like I know many people are afraid to talk and speak about it, especially in the church. They're afraid to say, oh, because they think this person is such a godly person. But no, he's not. He's not. And don't tell me that he just made a mistake and he should get up back in the pulpit. No, he should not, because it was something that he been doing and still doing, and we have to shut it down. But I know that you can stand. I know that you can make it. I know that if you just really cry out, I know God will send somebody to help you and rescue you, because I think I cried so much that it's hard for me to even cry now. I'm just more stern and strong, and I voice my opinion. Let me tell you, if you're out there listening, your voice is great. Your voice is good. No matter what you've been through, even if you want to get it out now, I don't care if it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, get it out, because you are somebody and you are great. And it doesn't matter what happened then, but the thing is, what matters is you let it out now. You don't have to keep it in because it was then. But
You had a very challenging situation because of the nature of it. Your whole belief system could have been totally fractured from that encounter.
it
Your whole belief
almost was.
system inside of God, your whole belief system inside of right and wrong, because this was a direct violation. This was a violation of your spirit, of your person, a violation of who you are. And we tend to think when it happens, and it happens with someone that's in a church, particular leader, pastor, bishop, or whatever,
Yes.
we tend to think almost as if we say something, it's going to do something to make that person, we become more concerned about that person's image than we do about ourselves. And
And
people
that's
will urge,
exactly what I did.
yeah, and people will urge you
That's
to
what
try
I
to,
did.
yeah. So you
I
would
did
force,
that thing. I actually, jail. Nobody wouldn't believe me. Nobody this. I actually believed him when he said that. Those are trickery things. If you're out those are trickery things that they tell you. They'll tell you nobody's not going to believe you. Don't listen to that. That greatness in you, yes, there's somebody that's going to believe you, and there's going to be somebody that stands with you. So you speak up, even if you're a teenager listening right now and somebody's harming you right now. I mean, you can veronicabrooks.com. You could send it to me, your name or whatever, and I'll give you my phone number. You call me, you call Dr. Valerie, we're here. And you don't have to be afraid. It's them that need to be afraid. And it's them
Absolutely.
that we need to stand up and put them in their place.
we call those tactics. Those are tactics of an abuser, of an oppressor. When they use tactics like no one will ever believe you, who's going to believe you, and they go to attack your character. And this is why this is so important, because when people want to come back and say, well, he just made a mistake. No, that's not a mistake at all. That is pre-calculated. That is what this person have been able to get by with. And so because they have never been checked, they have never been held to accountability, they continue to do so. And so they sound very convincing in saying nobody's going to believe you because everybody before you have been intimidated. They've been intimidated. But that role going from victim to victor,
Mhm.
that's the journey that I believe that your book is talking about. That
Yes.
it's that role. It is that role because it is natural that oftentimes a person who's been victimized like that, they blame themselves. What did I do wrong?
Yes.
And the enemy used that as a field day to beat them up,
Yes, that
to
is
feel
so
sorry. So now they're shamed. They're
Yes.
hiding. They don't want to talk about it. They're isolated. But you said something that was so important. We have to reverse this thing. The shame shouldn't be on the victim. The shame ought to be on the perpetrator. Shame on them.
And it happens a lot.
And we have to reverse that. And I said, and it's a tough place to be, but let me say something. The Bible talks about perfect love, cast out all fear. Listen, my love, or God's love inside of us will make us come forth and put it out there, because we're not going to protect an individual who is abusing power. Number one, they're abusing power. Number two, they're violating trust. And then thirdly, they are now using tactics to oppress you inside of it. And so for every woman, every person, because we often say that's a good read for a woman, but I think it's also good for a man. I think we
yes,
as men need to understand the fact of when we abuse our power, when we become misogynistic and we start controlling and manipulating and doing things that's going to bring harm like that, and knowing intentionally, we need to be held in check. We need to be held
yes,
in check. And as a man, think about it. You have a mother, you have sisters, you have a daughter, you have nieces. Understand the dynamics inside of that before you just think that you're going to use your power to manipulate. And I want to just close by saying this. Out of all the things that happen, oftentimes when people are molested and raped and all these things there, the first thing they encounter when they go to talk to people, unfortunately, people in the church, is that they're not believed. And the question is, what did you do? What did you have on when you was around them? And it is the reason why the campaign for sexual assault and rape is start by believing. That's the
yes,
word to those of us that someone will dare come to us and share with us that they've suffered this type of trauma. Our first response ought to be we ought to start by believing them. In other words, I'm going to issue you credit.
yes.
I'm going to believe you right from the beginning because
Right.
you have less of a reason to lie about that than you have to to make up a story. And so we have to start by believing. And I salute your courage. And I know that just this book, even this show,
It
this
was
time,
hard to write. It was hard to,
yeah,
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 no,
because you relive it when you're writing something and putting it on papers. And I recommend that individuals, even if you're not doing the book, whatever is in you, start writing it down so it could come out of you,
yes,
because right now it will be in your head and it will be in your spirit, and then you find yourself warring within because you want to be normal, but something happened to you, something fractured you, something broke you, something humiliated you, and you need to get it out. And sometimes you can't talk to individuals like Veronica stated that, you know, who could she tell, who could she go to? And then she was trying to protect individuals because she didn't want them to get in trouble. Forget that.
yep.
Expose them openly.
Forget it. Yep.
Expose them openly. And I know you're saying, well, Dr. Val, that's easy for you to say. You don't know what I've been through. No, you don't know what I've been through.
That's yes,
You
and
don't know
that's so
what I've
true.
been through.
That is
I've
so
had
true.
to expose individuals because, yes, I was molested as well. So I know the heart hardship, the shame, the humiliation, the depression, and all that goes along with it, even at that young age, not knowing what depression was. We fought our way through the current, through the storm of life. You know how you inside of a storm when it's raining and it's lightning, and even a snowstorm, and you're walking through with a blizzard. That's what it's like. The pain and darts that come against your face, and you're still trying to push your way through. Push your way through now, because
Yes,
your latter is going to be far greater than your former. You just got to push your way through it.
yes, because what Dr. J said, I almost became an atheist. Basically, I didn't, and to this day, I mean, I don't really like church. But I love God. But God had to
Yes,
take
yes.
me around the world to see who He really was. I had to live in these different countries to really see who God was. I mean, from Italy to Japan to, Singapore to Hong Kong. I had to see who God was. I had to see that cross, because it was just that little thing almost destroyed me.
Of course, of course.
And it can, and it's the tactic of the enemy. I often say, in our youth, that's a very pivotal time. You're still developing, the total mind and the whole concept of adult and the brain totally filling out and all that. It doesn't happen till we get, 23, 24, 25 years old. And so when we have trauma like that to happen very young, it is a crisis. We wrote in our whole thing dealing with faith, and when there's a crisis, when a person even experienced domestic violence, it creates a crisis even in their faith. They start wondering why this God, why is
And
this
is
happening?
there a God?
Is there a God?
That's what.
If you love me, why would you allow this to happen? So
Yeah.
there are a lot of things that happen. So that's why the violation is so great. And if we never put things in account to make individuals accountable for this, then what we're doing is that we're co-signing on these type of behaviors happening. We're
Mm.
turning a deaf ear, we're turning a blind eye to it. But as we turn the deaf ear and the blind eye, what we're doing, we're leaving trails of individuals whose lives and spirit has been broken. They've been shattered. They have been left with doubt. They've been left, and this is not the way they was intended to live. And so, if nothing else, we all have a responsibility to stand up, start by believing what is being said, believe that individual. I operate on this premise. If an individual comes to me and dare have the courage to come and to share,
Woo.
I take that for face value, because it takes courage, because you know that all eyes are on you. Stigmatization, how are you going to look at me? Because we see it happen. A
Yeah.
person that's a victim of rape, first thing people want to say, what did they have on? Where were they at? Why were they doing there at the time? Your clothes don't reach out and make someone rape you.
Right.
Exactly.
And so we have to understand that. So when an individual goes to the limb where they set up a divisive plot to do so, that's entrapment. And inside that entrapment, that's a criminal act. And it's demonic for anyone who say they love God and would do
And
such.
they should go to jail.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I think all of them should, because I talked with the ladies, they deal with human trafficking. And she said,
Absolutely.
Veronica, what you were in, that's part of a human trafficking, because they all came together to take you to that place. And then they left you there alone, not knowing that man was back there for him to do that. She said that's a form of human trafficking.
By all means, you were basically exploited. They deceived you, and so that's all of that. It's so funny. I just taught a human trafficking workshop earlier today, and that's all those type of elements that are there. And so that's why your story is so important, and because it happened on the landscape that it did. Some people say, "Well, don't say that. You make the church look bad." No, we're not making the church look bad. We're making
Exactly.
the devil look bad for who he is, and individuals who are wearing the cloak, and they're hide behind the cloak, and they're wolves in sheep clothing, because they come to devour those that are vulnerable. And that's what traffickers do. They
Right.
take advantage of your vulnerability. They exploit them, and they reinforce it through deceit, through lies, and coercion. And you suffered that at the hands of someone that so many people trusted. Power,
And
absolute
then to
power.
add insult to it, Dr. J, years later, here he is still there doing the
Yes.
same thing.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a tragedy that, that he's such a manipulator, just like the devil. The devil is a manipulator and a deceiver of the brethren. So we can't sit blindly by, because first of all, preachers and priests and all that, they're individuals.
Hmm.
And they're subject to their flesh.
Hmm.
And the word of God tells us not to put the confidence in the flesh. And it also tells us to watch as well as pray. Yes, we receive the word of God, but don't put an individual so high on a pedestal that we can't see them for who they are. We all in the clouds and stuff and not watching and not praying.
Mm-hmm.
That's because we made icons. And that stage of iconic worship, we have to be very careful of. It is one of the reasons I don't like playing with titles. I don't like playing with those type of things, because when we, if you would ascribe certain deity to people and we put them up on a pedestal, what we're saying is that they're above reproach, that they're above it, and they're not. But even more so, we the individuals ought to say, no, we ought to be denounced and no, don't put me up there on that type of pedestal. That's not who I am. I'm a man. I'm a man with flaws. I'm a man. And that doesn't excuse it. But what it does say is this: don't excuse me because of my title. And that's what the church has got to be careful of. And we see it happen because oftentimes when these individuals are finally trapped or finally brought to accountability and it really comes out, you know what happens? They come, they shed some tears. They want to come up in front of the people and they want to ask for forgiveness, apologize. And this is what the church does.
Crocodile tears.
Yeah. And this is what the church does.
And forgive me.
Yeah,
Yep,
the
that's
church,
what they say. Yep.
folks come up to them and they start wrapping their arms around them. They start saying, that's a good man there. That took a lot to do that. Meanwhile, nobody have thought about the line of victims that they've left there still hurting. Nobody reached out to them. Nobody ministered to them. Nobody embraced them. Nobody accepted them. So it's crazy, our sense of theology that excuses one, and yet it still stigmatizes the other.
Yes. Yes. Because it's 87%. It's either 87 or 89% that have been raped. They either become prostitutes, they either become on drugs, they're alcoholics, or they commit suicide. And I'm grateful I'm here. And I didn't do anything like prostitution. I didn't do any of that. But I can understand if somebody came to me. I understand why, what they did, because they had nobody there really to help them. Like I said, I had both my parents, when I was growing up. It's just when my dad got sick, so they already had instilled in me a whole lot of things. It's just I didn't have no idea people do things like that, especially pastors and bishops. It was hard for me to comprehend that.
Yeah.
Relatives too.
Yeah, violation of trust. It's a violation of trust. It's something that we don't like talking about, particularly in Black and brown communities. We don't want to talk about incestual things that happen, incest that is happening. We don't want to talk about it. As a man, and I think about it, I grew up with six sisters. Five of them was older than me. One was younger. And I think about my three other brothers, two being younger. And I think about it every day, that I am glad that my sisters grew up not having to worry about their brothers, trying to be with them in that way.
Yes, that is, yes.
For that reason, my mind is always on my nieces and my nephews, and of course my own daughter, because the fact it is so important to establish those type of boundaries, expectations, and those things that are there. Because if you don't establish it, that type of mindset and spirit will run rampant. And it'll run
Yeah.
rampant, and you have generational incest. You have generational type things happening, which means no more than a lot of generational pain. And I applaud you for breaking the cycle. I applaud you for coming forth. I applaud
Yes.
you because what you
You.
have demonstrated is that there's a warrior within. If you can tap into it, that
Thank
warrior
you
is
so much.
can overcome. So once again,
Yes.
definitely applaud you.
I'm grateful I had good men around me, good my dad, my brothers. Yeah. And I when I spoke about my life testimony, yeah, some of them said their dad and their brothers had did all these things to them. That was hard for me to comprehend because I had good brothers, cousins,
Absolutely.
uncles, you know. Yeah, but
Well, it comes in all shapes and forms. They're individuals that are broken themselves mentally and emotionally, spiritually, and they become predators. And I'm not excusing them for their actions because it's just a horrible thing. But I want to thank you, Dr. Veronica M. Brooks. You're my
thank
girl.
you,
You're my girl. I love you from the moment I met you.
Valerie.
And you and Glenn, I love you to pieces. And she has released her memoirs, The Warrior Within. And I want you to support her. I need you to go buy this book. You're like, well, Dr. Val, I haven't went through anything like that. I'm so sorry that happened to Dr. Veronica. Yeah, but you know what? It could have happened to somebody else that you may not know that it's happened to. And this
Right.
book can help them. So offer the book, buy it as a gift and say, this woman, Dr. Veronica Brooks, wrote this book. She tells a story. We always want to read stories and novels about individuals, and we fantasize through their book when they're novels. Well, this is reality. Support her, Dr. Veronica Brooks. Go to www.veronicabrooks.com and sow a seed into her life and sow it into someone else's life by purchasing the book. Any closing remarks, Veronica?
I just want people out there to make sure that you go after your dream and know that you are somebody great in spite of all the traumas you've been through. Always keep your head up and move forward.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. This is Woman Empowerment Month, and I'm so excited about the lineup of ladies we're going to have on the show. And I thank you once again, Dr. Veronica M. Brooks, author of The Warrior Within. Good night and God bless.
Good night.